Hey, good evening, Gunjur online watch viewers, our friends in the Gambia, in the diaspora, and wherever. We're back again today on Friday evening. I think it's a third weekend, not third Friday, not in a row, but third Friday nonetheless. We are here having discussions about Gambian affairs, Gambian social politics. As we always say, we are here, none of us are pretending or claiming to be experts, but we just thought that as Gambians, it's incumbent upon us to have conversations, to have debates, to have discussions, and from these debates, we should be, and could be able to make a better Gambia. We can inform Gambians, and informed citizenry is a very. Hello, can you guys hear me? Oh, sorry, I seem to have lost you guys. Oh, yes, we need citizens who are informed. So I'm here again today with Mr. Louis Sambou and Mr. Lamin Tamba. And we're joined by Mr. Yusef, aka Flex Dan. I hope you guys can hear me. I'm getting fuzzy screen for some reason. I don't know if you guys can see me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me as well?
Yes, I can hear you.
Very
okay.
well.
All right. Sorry, guys. So sorry, the viewers. I'm getting a bit. I don't know what's on with my screen. But anyway, as I was saying, we're back here again, just like we've been doing for the past 3 weeks, or 3 weeks anyway, not in a row. But this is the third week, just having a conversation as Gambians, fellow Gambians. We just discussing, exchanging ideas. I got Palui is here again. Palui Sambou is here again. We got Mr. Tamba and we got Mr. Yusef. So, guys, you were very welcome. Before we start today, I mean, the topic of discussion today is during this week, probably was Tuesday or Monday, and we heard from the radios and in the news broadcast that the IEC, that is the the Independent Electoral Commission in the Gambia, they're extending the franchise to us Gambians abroad. So that means we'll be able to vote in presidential elections. We thought I was quite excited about it, and then I realized actually it's like most things in the Gambia, you need to be much more careful. So I think we should be maybe a bit cautious, or maybe we should just be jubilant. This is what we're discussing today. So guys, the floor is yours, Mr. Sambou. If I could start with you. You need no introduction, but it's for formality's sake again. If you can just do a brief introduction of yourself, please.
Yes, thank you, Dave, once more for having me on your platform. Like you said, I've been on this platform, I think 3 weeks in a row now. So I think most of your viewers would have been used to me by now. So just to save time, I'll just briefly introduce myself. Just like you said, obviously my name is Pa Louis Sambou, but in short, Pa Sambou Junior, and I live in the UK in the East Midlands, and I work in I practice law in the UK here, and I work in the UK public sector. So, what just like you said, none of us are experts, of course. So all we are doing here is just to exchange ideas, and pretty much we are going to be doing exactly just that. We may not agree on everything, but hopefully we'll have a very interactive discussion, and we learn from each other, and the viewers too would learn something from us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Tamba, please.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Mane. Good evening, Pa Samba, or Pa Samba Junior. Good evening, Flex Dan. And to all your viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Lamin Tamba, Gambian, living in London, United Kingdom. I am a trainee solicitor, so I've done a little bit of law, but I've not practiced that long. So the prospects of me voting for my next Gambian president in the UK is exciting, I would say, because in our country, I think my opinion is the president represents Gambia home and abroad. So Gambians home and abroad should be able to have a say on who we want to see as a president representing us. So giving Gambians their voting rights when they're outside of Gambia is very important. So hopefully I will be able to exchange some ideas with my colleagues here and the viewers. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Yusef, please.
Thank you so much for inviting me to your platform. It's the first time I've been here. A lot of people may know me as Flexdown. My real name is Yusef Taylor. I'm the editor for Kainako Online News. I'm also a spokesperson for Team Gumsa Boba, which is a youth movement here, or youth-led organization, if I could say, here in the Gambia. Most notably, the president is Killer Ace, which some of you might know them by. So I'm very interested in diaspora enfranchisement. As a journalist here, it's something I chase on the ground. I have an interview with the IEC chairperson, which he said months ago, actually, when I published it. I know Sambou might know, but I published that months ago when I had an exclusive interview with the IEC chairperson, questioning him because I was living in the UK.
Yeah, I think we probably lost Mr.
Anyways,
Taylor.
I'll just continue. Hopefully you can see.
Oh, yeah,
So
go
I'm
ahead.
really keen on diaspora voting. I have a page which I opened some while back whilst I was in the diaspora. We still keep it going. It's called Gambia Diaspora Vote. So Gambians can go and check that out. So I'm really, really interested to ensure that the Gambian diaspora get the right to vote, and not only stop at that, they also can have representatives that represent them from the diaspora. So I think I really welcome this. Thanks for being here with you guys. I'm sure, like usual, me and Sambou will differ, but nothing too unexpected.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Yes, like I said, I was a bit excited, but then I'm like, all right, hold on a minute here. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. But like you guys say, it's nice to be optimistic. I think when it comes to the practical side of it, I think that's what we need to wait for. But it's good to hear from you, Mr. Yusuf, Mr. Taylor, that you actually had had an interview. I didn't hear of this until today. So it just gave us hope that there are people in the Gambia who are actually fighting on our behalf in the diaspora. I mean, because I think somebody gave figures of the amount of financial contribution we make to the Gambians' GDP per year. I think just based on that alone, we should be able to have a say in Gambian politics. But I'm not sure the IEC's extension of the franchise to us actually extends as far as to voting for members of parliament. I think which they should do. But I think for now, I mean, if we start with just being able to vote for the presidency, I think that's the good start. But like I said, I'm a bit optimistic, but at the same time, I'm really tempered with a lot of Gambians, a lot of things we say. A lot of things we do seem, they have symbolic value, but then when you look down them, you see there's no substance. But like I said, I don't want to be too pessimistic. So, Mr. Sambou, what's your take on this, please?
Yeah, I have I in fact wrote a piece, an opinion piece. I think few weeks ago. I think it was a few days ago actually. For me, like yourself, I am cautiously optimistic, and the reason for that is this, because it was the IEC that actually took the initiative to announce that they are going to be extending the franchise to the diaspora, and Flexdown has done quite a lot of work on this, even during the time that he was in the diaspora, and now that he's in the Gambia. I followed the interview that he did with the IEC chairman, and for me, as an outsider, observing what's happening, I think the impression I get is that the political will for diaspora vote to happen or for the diaspora to get the franchise, I think the political will is lacking. Like most things, well, we have seen what happened with the Janneh Commission, because obviously, if other parts of the state are doing what they're supposed to do to achieve a particular objective, which obviously serves the public interest, whilst at the same time, another aspect of the state on this occasion being the executive and the National Assembly, and obviously the respective political party leaders, if they are not acting in the same way that the IEC is signaling, the chances are what we'll find out is we'll get up to the 11th hour and we'll just get a very unpleasant surprise that actually, because of X, Y, and Z, this whatever it was that was planned for us to vote may not happen. So, which is why I am cautiously optimistic about the whole thing, because, say for instance, if at all it was something that had been mandated by law, then it's a different question. Then that discretion would have been taken away from the hands of the executive. But so far, for now, because elections is all about numbers, and I'm sure the political parties, especially the incumbent, would be looking at the numbers in the diaspora, and he'll be working out whether, because over in the diaspora, from the little research that I did, I think we have roughly about 130,000 Gambians in the diaspora. Maybe not every single Gambian may register to vote, but that is the number. And in an elections whereby the voting system is first past the post, I think this 135,000 figure, it's a very important important bulk of voters. So I think if at all the incumbent thinks that people in the diaspora may not vote for him as much as he would like, it could be. I'm not saying that this is something that they are planning, but it's very possible that right at the 11th hour, he may decide to do certain things which could just obstruct whatever it is that the IEC wants to do.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Sambou. I think I'll let Mr. Tamba. What's your take? So we can't hear you.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. Hold on.
Yeah, we can hear now.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I believe if the election was going to take place in December 2021, if Barrow government and the IEC really wanted Gambians in the diaspora to vote, the process should have started by now. We should have been well into putting the infrastructure in place, not so much as putting buildings in place. What I meant by infrastructure is Gambian embassies across the world would have been way advanced into plans of allowing Gambians overseas to vote. Like Pastor mentioned, everything with government is public business. We all share this public entity. Now, government cannot run without the law. This is why government has got laws, the Constitution, Public Order Act, National Assembly Act, and all the other things that govern it. Because if you don't make rules for the public, it will become survival of the fittest. So therefore, to make public activities or organizations or groupings fair, there have to be laws that give the government or the enforcers the power to enforce. So although the Constitution of the Gambia doesn't say Gambian diaspora vote is an absolute necessity or an absolute right in every election, presidential election, I will come to National Assembly election and local government elections. But if the Constitution said that whatever Gambia government is there, the government of the Gambia must ensure the diaspora, Gambians in the diaspora vote, then the IEC and Barrow will not do what we think they want to do. All right. And I think if they wanted us to do something about the diaspora vote, they would have done it. By now, we should have had our registration forms and everything. Remember, we live in different cities in this part of the world. And it's not like Gambia that is tiny. United States is massive. United Kingdom is massive. Are they going to do postal voting? Do you have to go to a nearest consulate and vote? What are they going to do? If we were going to vote in 2021 in December, in my view, we should have been well underway in terms of setting up the system for it. They cannot wait until next year, February, and then start setting up systems for the diaspora vote. If I know that's what they're going to do, I think the diaspora vote is going to suffer a lot of electoral fraud or irregularities, because there's no way they're going to vet every single Gambian in this country, whether they have voters cards. So they're going to register their voters card, and they're not going to know where they live exactly. They're not going to know whether this Gambian that sent stuff is genuine Gambian or not Gambian. How are they going to vet it? How are they going to cross-check their registration, voters registration here, and the voters registration in Gambia? I can vote via postal ballot here and go to Gambia and vote in person. So 2 votes. How are they going to counter all these possibilities in terms of electoral fraud? My view is we should only vote in the presidential elections for now, because we don't live in the Gambia. All right. So to go and vote for a National Assembly member who's not going to represent you in the diaspora, unless, of course, you spend a large chunk of your time in the Gambia and you divide it between Gambia and another country, then you would be given the opportunity to vote in the Gambia. But me, that travels to Gambia for 2-3 weeks, maybe 2-3 times in a year, for me to go and vote for a National Assembly election that I don't know, that's not going to represent me. It would be unfair. Let's suppose that National Assembly member, the winner, wins by 1 vote, which by the current Gambian structures of elections, 1 vote is enough for somebody to become an MP, even if you won by 1 vote. If I voted for the MP who is not representative of his people, but voted because he's my friend or I wanted to make him win anyway, but then I'm not in the Gambia all the time, and this MP is not fighting the interest of the people, the locals, I will feel guilty. It will be wrong in every aspect. But for the president represents everyone. You might not like it. This is the problem with public sector work. Yes, elections divide us, but once the elections are done, you have the responsibility to serve even the people who hate you the most. You cannot say, oh, Dasilame didn't vote for me, so therefore I'm not going to bring them that new broadband internet service that's going to turn Gambia from 3G to a genuine 4G. You can't do that as a president. You can't do that as a cabinet minister. You might do that as an MP. You serve your constituents, but not a president. The president will serve Gambians on the ground and Gambians elsewhere. So I think we should really have been way advanced into systems of setting up systems rather for Gambians in the diaspora to vote. Going forward, to make it cast iron, bulletproof, Parliament should enact or amend the Constitution, Section 39, Section 40, 41, which talks about franchise. It does say every Gambian is entitled to vote, but it didn't emphasize the fact that the diaspora vote is an absolute must. The government can just choose to say, okay, Barrow is very unpopular with diasporans. And I think most serving governments will be unpopular with diasporans. And if you look at most governments in the world, they are very unpopular with the urban metropolitan populations. They will be popular with the countryside, because countryside usually are the people who don't come across other types of people, who are probably not as informed, who are probably not facing the challenges of living in the urban areas, the expensive challenges of living in the urban areas. So countryside people will normally go with the incumbent, the ruling government. But people in cities, metropolitan areas, and the diaspora will be looking at high standards of candidacy. If you're not meeting those high standards, you're not going to be popular. So what is Barrow and his colleagues thinking right now? Oh, NPP is not popular in the diaspora. We're not going to give them the chance to vote. Because let's suppose Sambou Jr. is the APRC candidate next year, and he's so popular, right? Over here in the diaspora, and 100% of the diaspora vote. Already, he's going to be number 1 or number 2 next year. Because next year, there'll be so many parties Don't be surprised if our winning candidate only won 15% of the vote. This is why Parliament now have to ensure they enact a law to make it 50% plus, because we cannot have a president who just won 15% of the vote. That's the challenge Barrow is facing right now. That's why he's so unpopular, because he won 43%. Out of that 43%, the coalition has fragmented. Barrow is probably running with 5%, 10% support, and we need to stop that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Tamba. Obviously, we're going to have to elaborate on this some more. So, Mr. What's it called? Mr. Yusef, what's your take, please? I think you mute.
Yes. Okay. So, first of all, I think we just need to look at and familiarize ourselves with the calendar. So I've written about this, and there is a calendar out there which has a timeline and a schedule when things will be done. Mr. Tamba talked about registration. It will happen in June or July. It's supposed to happen in July. The diaspora registration. The Gambian registration is expected to happen at the start of 2021. And then the constitution was supposed to take place in June. That has been killed. And then in the calendar, it says, I believe in July is when the diaspora would be registering in time for the elections towards the end of the year. So that's the timeline. Yes, there are concerns. So I think certainly what needs to be done now, together with us on the ground who here, I'm definitely hell-bent on that. Because I'm not in the diaspora right now, at any moment I could be back in the diaspora. Let's be very frank. But for right now, obviously, I've made a decision to be here in Gambia. I just have to be part of this change that we are having, this transition, this change from into a new constitution. I think it's the time. It's the time for Gambians. Gambians, you have to. If you're a Gambian, this is an opportunity to be part of a change that will be here for generations. Another constitution, hopefully, at least a generation. But on the diaspora front, I really, if you look, and me and Paulo, we have disagreed on this. And my main reasons is just with regards to what the Constitution says and what should happen legally. So the Constitution says every single Gambian has the right to vote and to be, if you are adult, to stand. The Constitution gives you that right. Now, if you also engage, and I have been engaging constitutional experts, CRC, lawyers, etc., and they tell me, and I agree with them, that your right to vote is not actually determined by being a diaspora, but just by being a Gambian. Just your right to vote and your right to stand. Now, when you look at the way the Gambian laws are, for me, the Constitution is okay. It doesn't need to be changed. I really don't think that we should be differentiating inside the Constitution between a diaspora Gambian and a Gambian that lives in Gambia. I don't think that there's need for that. Now, when we come to the Electoral Act, it's in the Electoral Act that the various regions are recognized. And obviously, it only, well, let's say not obviously, but not forward thinking enough, if I would say. It only recognizes the different constituents within the Gambia, within the 7 districts. And I was there when the 7 or 5, whatever it is. But the 8th region, the 8th region, not only is the Gambia talking about the 8th region, the African Union is talking about the 8th region, because they understand how important the diaspora is. The diaspora is that region. I have a document here. When I was in the UK, the president came to the UK, and they had a diaspora strategy. It's a small pocket book. I've even digitized it. Gambians should familiarize themselves. I believe it's these promises we must continually remind the authorities about. It is these flamboyant speeches promises, which sometimes they make, that we must hold them to account, that they must hit the deadline. You must see that they are preparing, for example, for the voter registration. You understand? And to make sure, and don't leave it until June, July, for example. You started at the time of when you see that the diaspora and Gambians have started registering, be knocking on them. I hope you guys are thinking about the diaspora. But in short, and I've done some studies on this, like Sambou and I think Sambou, did we work on those studies before in the past, which was to look at other countries, how they managed to get the diaspora to vote. And you can see Senegal is leading in the globe, actually. Probably. I don't see any other country in the whole entire world. You could say Senegal is leading on this with 15 National Assembly members. And I know this is where my APRC comrade Lamin Tamba will hit back with the anti-Senegal, sentiments. But in all seriousness, they have about 15 MPs. And from what we have seen in there, it appears as if you need to have what you call an external voter, pretty much an external electoral bill. Yeah. So that bill should govern how voting will be done, which I believe will be via paper ballot. I don't see marbles. It's one of the reasons also which I also support paper, because I cannot see Gambians in the diaspora voting with marbles. They are very heavy to move them around across the globe to a local central destination. That will make it hard for Gambians to do that. So I believe it is in this external voter act, if you could call it, and other countries have it. What it does, it will govern how voting will be done outside. Will it be at the embassies? Will they find designated polling stations? Will they look at the areas where Gambians are most, concentrated? So there's so much that we've been looking at with this. We definitely need statistics, and I think I'll just round up here to try to let my other colleagues comment. I mean, statistics, I believe, are very, very important. There is a Gambian diaspora economist by C. Omar Kebe, who I do get in touch with. He sends me his writings. He works for the United States government. He's a statistician. He's a pretty much the pioneer, the leading expert when it comes to diaspora mapping, knowing where they are, knowing how many they are. That needs to be done so we know where to best position the polling station. And when you start talking about these things, and then you start bringing in embassies, we need to also start thinking about the political aspect of that. Who are in control of these embassies? Let's be very clear. People know me. I speak my mind. I'm very blunt sometimes. I mean, these embassies, we all know there was a lifetime. It was under the UDP leader, Hussein Dabo, and he made sure that a lot of the embassies, they actually were controlled by UDP. I don't know now. And I've been sounding these things for a long time, because I'm not going to wait until this becomes a problem for us to highlight it. This highlights the issue of how we vote, where we vote, who is in control of those things. We also need to make sure that we weed out the nitty-gritties, so that these votes will not be like Lamin Tamba was talking about. They will not be transformed to suit somebody's political ambition. So there's a lot about this. There are so many ways to vote. I don't think we will do, I don't know whether we'll do postal votes. I don't know what we will do in-person votes, whether it will be via email, electronic, I doubt it, whether we have the right security for that. So it's a huge, huge thing. And raising and bringing up all these things, it might sound like there's too much in it, but I don't think it is. But you have to go through the motion. You have to take these things one by one. You have to know the way you're going to vote. Is it postal? Is it in person? You have to know, where are people going to be voting? Who is in control of those places? So there's so many things to talk about when it comes to diaspora vote. I'm just bringing them out there for now. And I think it's fair. Let me let the other guys come in. And certainly, yes, please challenge me. I don't want us to make this boring. Let's make this interesting. Huh?
No, that's thank you so much, Mr. Sambou, Mr. Tamba, and obviously Mr. Taylor. Yes, I just want us to read more courses here. I don't want us to jump ahead of ourselves. I know, like I said, it's very exciting. I was very excited, but I think, like Pa Louis said, and also Mr. Tamba also touched on this. Until and unless we can get this in the law books, I think it's probably pie in the sky right now. It sounds good. It sounds great.
Yeah.
It needs to be in the law books, really. And I think if they have the will, if the people in Parliament back in the Gambia have the will, they should be able to do that. So I think, I am not overly pessimistic, but I'm not also overly optimistic either, because there are always political calculations here. Let's not ever lose sight of that. So, like Mr. Tamba said, he covered that fully well. So I don't think I need to go back on that. But there are political calculations. If somebody sits back, politics is all about winning at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter who is the state house in the Gambia, whether it's Mr. Tamba or it's Mr. Mane or Mr. Sambou or Mr. Taylor. At the end of the day, number one looks after number one, and number one, who is number one? Your number one, your own number one. So he also wants to win. So if you look at the political calculation, and he has his statisticians, so analysts. And they tell him, guy, Mr. Barrow or Mr. Jamia or Mr. Mane, whoever, say, look, the voting block in the diaspora is so huge. They can make a massive change. They actually can be what you call the kingmakers. Do you really want to franchise these people? So he might just say no. He might be he might just not be very keen on it. But if you have a law, if it's on the law books, then he hasn't got a choice. So I think, like I said, I don't want to be overly pessimistic. I think I just want to tread very, very cautiously here. But anyway, I was just going to say on again what Mr. Tamba said, and actually Mr. Taylor was talking about like this marble voting and the paper voting. I don't know if you had, you obviously you're based on the ground, but I heard they did some elections in the college or the University of the Gambia, and they decided to use the paper voting, and these are supposed to be our educated folk, if you want to call them that, yeah. And then I think a huge percentage of the votes were spoiled. You can call them spoiled. Yeah. Because people are choosing 2 or 3 people, and these are meant to be educated people. So if you got 75%, you guys can correct me here. I don't know the percentage. If you can give me, let's say, even 50% of the population can read or write. Obviously, you can give them a piece of paper. There might be a picture of the candidate there. There might also be their flags there or their colors. I think there's a major problem. I think we would like to move to the papers, but is it practical? Yeah. I don't know, guys. Mr. Sambou, I'll come back to you again. Thank you.
Yes, I just pick up on one thing that Flex has said, which is to do with the fact that it states in the Constitution. I think Lamin Tamba referenced it, which is Section 39. That all Gambians of age, well, once you reach the age of 18, you are entitled to vote. Yes, but it does say that in the Constitution, but that is a general right to vote. Mm-hmm. It does not specifically extend that right to the diaspora, because it is a general right. It is a right that has to be understood to be a right that can be exercised by Gambians who are qualified or who are eligible and live within the jurisdiction of the Gambia. Mm-hmm. For those that live outside the jurisdiction of the Gambia, mm-hmm. for them to vote, mm-hmm. it's a question of discretion, which, as we can see, the IEC have exercised mm-hmm. on this occasion, but the Gambia government could exercise that discretion and make sure that the Election Act is amended to include the diaspora, or another Elections Act is passed or proposed to the National Assembly for them to pass it to include diaspora, just like the example that that Flex has given in the case of Senegal. But as things stand right now, I don't think that the Constitution actually expressly or extends the franchise to the diaspora. It has not stopped us voting, but it has not given us the right to vote either, expressly. So it's still a question of discretion. For somebody that lives in the diaspora, if at all you go to the Gambia, you register, yes, you can vote. But whilst you are in the diaspora, it is not something that you are entitled to. I'll just give you an example, because the reason why I say that it's a general right, because if you look at the Constitution, obviously, it has so many rights. I'll just pick one as an example: the right to life, which obviously obliges the Gambian state to ensure that no Gambian citizen is going to lose their life or is going to be deprived of the right to life in circumstances which are not lawful. Okay, that is in the Constitution. Does that mean that the Gambia government has an obligation to keep every Gambian safe everywhere in the world? No, it doesn't. Me, that is in the diaspora, that lives in the diaspora, I am a Gambian. If something happens to me here, I cannot sue the Gambia government, because clearly it is a general right that can only be exercised, and an obligation on the state, which the state has to safeguard for individuals who are within the jurisdiction of the Gambia. So it does not, the right to vote does not specifically include the diaspora. So it leaves it open for the state to close that gap by way of an act of the National Assembly. I know myself and Flex, we have gone back and forth on this issue for quite some time. But I just thought I'll just bring this out. But just to pick up on something that Flex has pointed out, which I think is something that I have not even thought about, but I think we have to give that a very serious thought, because like he's explained, most of the embassies around the world obviously are political bureaus. I think so clearly, if at all the embassies are going to be used as the polling stations and we are using ballots, I think we can just look at what's taking place in the United States, and I think next year by this time we're going to end up there. We're going to have Adam Barrow in the State House giving out press conferences and saying, "No, I want the recount. I want the recount. There was fraud in the embassy." So we're all laughing at Trump now. So who knows? Next year by this time it could be Adam Barrow. So
yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Sambou. It's nice to get some joke into it. Yeah, but it's a serious matter. I mean, Trump's seriously, yeah. But like you said, yes. I think it will be nice. I don't want to repeat myself. I mean, you guys covered it very well, yourself and Mr. Tamba, and obviously Mr. Taylor. That it will be nice to have this backed by legislation. Like you said, I mean, this is why we like to have people who are legally trained, because your legal insight is very, very powerful. It's very, very useful to us. Yes, I mean, everybody, the rights is in you have to hold in the Constitution, but it doesn't mean that they've been respected. So there you go. But Mr. Tamba, what's your take?
Well, Sambou is right. Flex has made a very important point. And this is why when I write on Facebook, people get stunned. I am a lover of numbers. And Flex mentioned statistics. I love Gambians to give respect to numbers. They don't like giving respect to numbers. They like hearing somebody said, yeah, Sambou took $10 from Gambia government. It's the worst corruption ever. But do you know what Lamin Tamba took from the APRC government? Do you know what Mr. Mane took from the PPP government? How do you compare it? You can't say it's the worst when you don't have three comparatives. You can't say somebody is worse than me when you don't have the two figures. So statistics are very, very important. But like Sambou said, if we have an act of parliament making it absolutely fundamental that the diaspora votes, the government will have no wiggle room. They can't say, all right, well, we don't have funds to extend it to the diaspora, or we don't have the systems or mechanisms to do it. The embassy is worrying in terms of the fact that whether you like it or not, ambassadors are political appointments, all right? They're supposed to go through the civil service, but it doesn't work like that. It's a bit like cabinet ministers. You can appoint civil servants from permanent secretary or managing directors to become ministers, but once they become ministers, the neutrality is gone. Once you become an ambassador, the neutrality is gone to some extent, right? You're doing work for your country, but you work in accordance with the policy of the government of the day. So the ambassadors could suddenly start playing games. However, what the ambassadors cannot do, or the embassies cannot do, if they registered 100,000 voters and they've given each of these ballot votes, because I think in the diaspora it's probably going to be a mail vote anyway. I doubt that will be email vote. If it's email vote, I know who's going to tamper with the emails and get 1 million votes from 100,000 registered voters. All right. So I don't want to go there, but let's get an act of parliament. Two things I want us to do very urgently is 50% plus. It's not an entrenched part of the constitution, so it can be changed from simple majority to 50% plus. Secondly, diaspora vote, let's enact it. Let's amend the constitution to say Gambians living abroad can vote, and these are the identified locations. So if Senegal has 15, Gambia can have 8 or 6 or whatever. So America can have one focal point, UK can have one focal point, the whole of EU can have one focal point, or you can divide it into two. You can have one in France, one in Germany, or one in France and one in Italy. And you can have one in maybe Saudi Arabia or UAE or Dubai, or maybe one in Saudi Arabia will take all the Arab votes, all right? So we need to look at, this is why I said, right now, we're not up to speed in terms of setting these systems in place for next year. And also the presidential election, the paper ballot, let them trial the paper ballot at National Assembly elections or local government election, because we're dealing with smaller numbers, we're dealing with local voters. With presidential elections, let's stick to the paper ballot, because that's where most of the challenges are coming from. Presidential elections are what will set the country on fire. National Assembly elections and local government are unlikely to do it, and we're looking at isolated incidents, locality of where something happened, all right? If that's a mistake in Serekunda Central, it's easier to rectify than rectifying a national issue. So let them prepare the paper ballots, because I think paper ballots will be efficient. They will save us having to have 3 election cycles in the space of 5 years. This is why we're getting distracted. I want us to go to the polls one day. Mr. Mane, President, Pa Sambou Jr., Member of Parliament for my area, Flex Dan, my mayor. The next one is going to be my councillor. 4 tiers, simple. President, MP, mayor, councillor, local councillor, 4. Done. We can have chiefs later, or we can do the chiefs the traditional way. So really and truly, our parliament, no. In fact, now that tourism is dead, we're not only the 8th region, we're Gambia's strongest pillar when it comes to foreign exchange. Without us in the diaspora, our economy is doomed in terms of foreign exchange. The dollar is going to shoot from 64 pounds, $64 per pound today to $100 per pound overnight. The foreign exchange is what keeps the dollars moderate. All right. If we were exporting a lot, we don't have to worry about diaspora remittances. If tourism was booming, we don't have to worry about diaspora remittances. If we want Barrow to act today, we can make him act today. But who's going to suffer? The public, because the inflation is going to go through the roof. A bag of sugar, which is now 1,700, 1,800, will suddenly become 2,500, 2,600. So we will make the government panic, but our people are going to suffer. You know, so this is why the government needs to take the diaspora seriously. And again, reason why to get diasporas voting is because our governments will up their standards, because they know diaspora is going to put their standards up there. If you're not hitting those dizzying heights, you're not going to get the diaspora vote, because we're seeing better here. We're being communicated to better in this part of the country. You go to Gambia, you got your money, you want to put it in a bank or invest in their business, and they don't run to you and say, hello, sir, Mr. Sambou, how can I help you? No, they sit there frowning as if you stab them in their heads. You see what I'm saying? All because of attitude. Our government has got attitude of thinking, oh yeah, don't worry about the diaspora, they're not going to vote anyway. But if they know we're going to vote, they will up their standards, because they know election cycle is going to come. And if their standards are not ridiculously high, the diaspora will say, well, in England, if I do this, within 3 weeks, I get my UK passport. How can I not renew my Gambian passport in the space of 1-2 weeks without bribing the immigration officers? This is why I think we need to look at it in terms of making it law. Take the excuses away from the government. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Tamba. Mr. Taylor, before you jump in, please, just give me 1 second. I just wanted to basically buttress the point Mr. Jami made. And I also wanted to ask us again about this paper ballot. For it to be effective, efficient, do you think that we need a dry run? Like you saying, for example, if we have local council elections, we make it a dry run.
Yeah.
And then before even that dry run, Mr. Taylor, you are on the ground, so you are much more informed than we are. How from your own perception, from your I mean, this is just like unscientific research anyway. Let's say, how do you think the Gambians are prepared for paper ballot? Really, people back home. I'm not talking about just like Greater Banjul area where most of the people, you can say 50% are literate. But if we go outside of that area, what are the chances of people being able to vote using paper ballots, Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, I think this has always been a question that I've been trying to. Preparation-wise, I haven't seen much being done by the IEC with regards to sensitizing the people. You would expect that they would probably begin that during the voters sensitization or the voters registration. I want to believe that they would start something. A dry run ideally would have been the best, and it anticipated that the constitution would have been the perfect opportunity for a dry run because it's a yes or no question. It's not a multiple choice where you can candidate A, B, C. So it would have just been a tick two boxes. Wow, well I did it. That's like pretty much the easiest test run dry run you could ever have. Unfortunately, we flushed that one down the toilet, so we're not having that dry run. But then when we look at it and when we look at what the situation is, so that's as far as IEC preparation goes. I haven't seen anything, and I know they've been so busy. They probably haven't had the chance for doing that. Currently, IEC is really bogged down with the whole who is going to do the presidential election, and I know there were some challenges around that after the Lamin and the Joker. So eventually, I think for me it boils down to this. How many countries are using maps? When we talk about our Gambians having the right intelligence or the educational background to do that. Of course, it's disappointing to hear what has happened to the UTG students. Unbelievable. If I don't know how true it is, but it's surprising. Nonetheless, I don't think, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's about 2 countries in the world using marbles. Gambia and another country. I can't remember right now off the top of my head. There are about 2 countries in the entire world that are using marbles. I don't think Gambians are not educated enough to tick from A, B, and C. I believe if the IEC does enough sensitization, that they will be able to make sure that the people can use paper ballots. And you know, when it comes to paper ballots and marble, you know, something people don't think about, and I think about this, is an election should also form a record, which can be challenged. And in this day and age which we live in right now, an election should be able to be challenged at court. You're seeing it. But the United States election, more and more, when you look at elections, they are being challenged. Now, I want to submit to you, Mr. Tamba would have been very happy had the IEC allowed Yaya Jammeh to challenge the elections. I don't think that there's any way for you to show this marble belongs to Flexdown. That marble actually was Lamin Tamba, and yes, he did pick so. So let's go through the record and show. For me, this is what it comes down to in the end. The credibility of your elections, the litmus test of a legal challenge. Can it stand it? Now, and then also for academic purposes in the end. When it is ballot papers, you can scan them. You can make sure that obviously it has to be secret ballot, but you can scan it and then you can find a way of making sure you do the analysis so that you are informed for future elections. As somebody, if you see my writing, I love academia, I love research. So I think that's important in the future. So just for ballot and paper, so those are my main reasons for ballot. I don't think Gambians are that illiterate. To be like what? Just because we changed ballot to paper, and we are one of 2 countries in the world. Everybody else is using paper. I believe if we fail, it is because we haven't done the sensitization. It's not because the people are not literate enough. It isn't, And just to clarify something, like I think it's very important for us to look at the Constitution and to understand some of the things. When the Constitution highlights who can vote, and let's be very clear, the Constitution does not recognize are you a diaspora Gambian or are you a resident Gambian? And I think it's dangerous for the Constitution to start recognizing that, to start giving up rights to diaspora, to whichever one it decides. Oh, you are a resident Gambian, so you get these rights, you get this. No. I think that's dangerous. I like it. The Constitution does not recognize a diaspora Gambian or a resident Gambian. So when it says every Gambian has the right to vote, Sambou, you approve it. Now, that is who should vote. Now, how you vote, where you vote, is guided by the Electoral Act. It's guided by the Electoral Act. It tells you that you vote by marble. It tells you how you vote. It tells you where. It tells you that maybe the IEC will be the one to decide where the polling stations will be. So those are the things which the Electoral Act addresses. So and that's why I believe either the Electoral Act is amended or an entirely different external bill is brought forward. So, for example, I think it's dangerous for us to start recognizing diaspora Gambians separately from residents, and where will it end? We just see each other as Gambians, but we must push. We must push for them to bring an act. We must push for them to have legislative reforms, so that Gambians can put that as something that they can go back to. I think it's not safe currently, as it is certainly is not safe, and it is not guaranteed for Gambians in the diaspora to vote, certainly. And there must be some legislation to make sure that that is guaranteed by law, really. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Sambou, before you jump in, I'm sure you can. You got up. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna answer those anyway. Mr. Taylor, I've just got a question. Like you said, comparatively, the Gambia and another country are the only places in the whole world which use this marble. And I am not a big fan. I've never voted in the Gambia, by the way. I left there a very long time ago, just before I ever voted. So all my life of franchise has been in the UK. I would like to vote for the Gambia one time in one election in the Gambia, because if nothing else, just like the rest of you, I do contribute to the country. The country's upkeep. So should at least give me the vote at the very least. But I'm just concerned about the practicality of it. How practical really is it? Like you said, a little bit of sensitization, and our people are not that civically aware. But if they're given the specific time period, I think it can be done. But my concern is that, like you gave us a timeline of us being in the diaspora, we might be registered by 2021. Oh, sorry, July 2021. But and then the guys in the Gambia maybe at the beginning of the year. So that's what I was thinking, that this election somewhere in up country, I think they had 2 by-elections in it. I think if they had used this paper ballots if they have used as a dry run, it could probably have been very, very good. But I have hope. You on the ground, you seem to be very energetic young man. So I think with people like you on the ground, I think we can probably sleep easy at night. But I am definitely concerned about the practicality of it, of this. But I'm very happy to be convinced by what you say, because you're on the ground. So, Mr. Sambou, anyway, I think Mr. Taylor had some.
I could just.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I think I just wanted to very quickly that. That's a very good question. We also need to, when we're thinking of the practicality of the ballots, let's also think of the practicality of the marbles.
Okay.
This is also the issue, and actually, what is forcing also the ballots to come to play. The marbles, you should actually be there, and if you lift one marble up, if it is full, you will see what I'm talking about when it comes to transporting. Yeah.
Okay.
Only if you have a large number of candidates, then you seriously have some challenges. If we have more than 5 presidential candidates, we are going to have a huge challenge. It will be expensive because of you have to have one drum for each person, for each candidate. You cannot have the same drums. For paper ballot, you can have one clear. It's only one clear plastic. It's plastic because of paper. You can put it in a plastic container. Lift it up.
Okay.
It's very light. It's cheap. The plastic itself is cheap. Then, if it's marble, it's metal.
Okay.
It's heavy, and you will create one marble ballot drum for each single candidate, not just for one polling station.
Okay.
For one polling station. There were how many polling stations? There were about 9 polling stations in the Nyamina West by-elections. For example, let's take that one for example. That one, the 9 polling stations have to have at least, if you have a lot of voters, you might need more than one ballot drum. But mostly in these elections, I don't think they needed more than one ballot drum. Let's just say 9 times 2. So 2 candidates. So that's 18 different ballot drums. And imagine if that was 5 candidates. Imagine the number of ballots that you would be needing. So these are all some of the things which I think we should also think about. The IEC, I have been with them in some of their validation, and they have lamented about some of these challenges and the practicality. In fact, I am about to do a study, a comparative study on the cost of the, I'm doing my checks, I'm doing my investigation. I'm trying to do a study on the cost of the just recently concluded elections, especially for the marbles. Then the question is, if that would have been ballots, how much would it have cost? That is the concept of what I'm trying to achieve. But I mean, these are all to help guide us to be able to make a better informed decision, and also to look at the cost of it, and also the practicality of it, and all those things. So I mean, I think there's a lot to talk about with marble paper. I think there needs to be detailed study. We need to look at the cost implications straight off. We also need to look at the practicality, and we need to be understood how much sensitization is needed to be able to make sure it works. And look at other countries who have gone through the transition, especially those with a similar education, like the Gambia, other countries which have made that jump and that are similar education. How did they do it successfully? And those who did it and it wasn't successful, it's always very, it's actually more useful sometimes to learn from failure than success.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Taylor. I think, yeah, like you said, it's always nice to do a lot of research. I'm quite heavily involved in those kind of things anyway. So I'm a very strong believer in them. But Mr. Sambou, okay, I mean, you've been quiet for a little while, so the floor is yours, please. So we can't hear you.
I hear what Flex has said. For me, really, I don't think we should be focusing too much on the cost, because at the end of the day, we want to get it right. Because if at all we focus too much on the cost and we abandon the marbles and bring in the ballots, because obviously, like Flex has explained, there is reason to believe that the marbles are more cost effective, one. And secondly, if at all there is a dispute, it would be it's a lot easier to try and verify the ballot papers, because you can always trace back the ballot papers to the constituencies from which they were cast. But obviously, if somebody drops a marble inside the inside those drums, regardless of which part of the country that person voted from, you cannot pick out the marble and say, oh, this marble was cast in X constituency or in X polling station. But with the ballots, you can always trace them back. So there is always that room for somebody to trace things back, just in case things go wrong and a particular candidate or a particular political party want to raise a dispute. That is obviously something that is a benefit or a merit that obviously can be attributed to the marbles as to the ballots as opposed to the marbles. But then again, if at all, from what I am hearing, it looks like the GDC, the UDP, and APRG, obviously they are opposed to the ballot papers. So if at all we the IEC follows through with the ballot papers, both for the diaspora and those in the Gambia. Personally, I think in the absence of a consensus with the other political parties, it just raises, creates an opportunity for others to dispute the results if at all it does not go their way. I'm not saying this is something that they have planned, like Donald Trump. Clearly, that's not what I'm suggesting. before Lamin Tamba comes in. So that's not what I am suggesting at all. I'm just saying that we just need to have this at the back of our minds as well. It has to be something that is consented to by all the political parties who are taking part. Because at the end of the day, I cannot imagine anything or any government expenditure, apart from obviously the expenditure that goes to the armed forces and the police to keep the citizens safe. I cannot imagine any other expenditure, any other government expenditure that is more important than the presidential elections. Even if we are going to spend 50% of our national budget to make sure that we have proper elections, absolutely yes. Because absolutely, because if we do not get it right, the cost could be a lot higher than the amount of money that we should be spending on it to make sure we get it right. Which is why personally I don't think costs should even be a consideration. Yes, like Flex has explained, obviously, practically speaking, and when it comes to the logistics, obviously, if at all the IEC has to take to every single polling station 15, I think we have about 15 political parties now, 15 drums. I think that can be. I do sympathize with that that argument that yes, that would cause some problems. But personally, I don't think if at all the public have not been sensitized well enough, and if at all there are still political parties who are objected to the ballot, I personally don't think now is the right time. Maybe we should have a rethink. And perhaps, like what Lamin Tamba suggested, I think they should have a dry run in, let's say, I wouldn't even say National Assembly elections, perhaps in local government elections. You can have a dry run in one particular administrative area, and then you can learn all the lessons. And once you learn all the lessons, you can try and make sure that at least for the next 4 years, you have that window of opportunity to try and make sure you do some more work to try and make sure you perfect the system for 2026. But if it is rushed now, I think the stakes are really high. But obviously, because I do want us in the diaspora to be able to vote, so I definitely would want the IEC and the Gambia government, if there's anybody that's watching, obviously they should be spending all the money that is that the IEC requires. Just like I said, I mean every single word that I say. If at all it is going to cost us 50% of our national budget, then that has to be what we spend on it. We have to make sure we get it right, because it is something that happens once every 5 years. It is not an expenditure that you do every now and again or every so often. It's just once every 5 years. So we have to make sure we get it right. Clearly, watching what's happening in the United States, which is supposed to be the most democratic country in the world, obviously, if at all the United States can get it wrong, we in the Gambia can get it wrong as well. So, which is why I'm worried that maybe we may be rushing things or moving slightly too fast for our pace. But like I said, we should try and make sure we get it right. But just before. Just to buttress this point again, I know Flex brought this up again. Flex, without going into without explaining everything that I've explained so far, all I would want you to look at is the rights that are in the Constitution. Clearly, I do agree with you. The Constitution should not be distinguishing between Gambians in the diaspora and Gambians that live in the Gambia. It shouldn't. But what I am saying is, what we have to look at is, whenever a right is given in the Constitution, it's a general right that the state has an obligation to ensure that that right is enjoyed by the citizens. But that obligation, that legal obligation for the state to ensure that that right is enjoyed by the citizens, is confined within the jurisdictions of the Gambia, not outside. Just like I said, with the right to life, it applies, it's a general right which Gambians within the Gambia can enjoy. If at all the state breaches that obligation or the state has not facilitated them to be able to enjoy that right, then they can sue the state. But they are within the jurisdiction of the Gambia. Once you are outside jurisdiction, it becomes something else. It becomes a discretion. Yeah. That the state can, obviously, the state can ensure that you still enjoy that right outside jurisdiction, but it's a discretion so far in the Constitution. Obviously, I cannot give you the exact words or the exact construction that needs to go to the Constitution to ensure that the diaspora, the Gambians in the diaspora, have the legal expressly given the right to vote in the Constitution. Clearly, I don't have the words right here, but all I am saying is, as it is right now, it is a general right, which if you are in the Gambia and you are a Gambian citizen, and obviously you've reached the age of 18 or over, you have the right to vote. The state has to ensure that they facilitate for you to enjoy that right. But if at all you live outside jurisdiction, it becomes a discretion, because the law does not say that that right applies to all Gambians everywhere. It applies to Gambians within the jurisdiction of the Gambia. So I leave it at that. I know you don't agree. I know you do not agree, because we've had this back and forth for quite some time. But at the end of the day, I have put my case forward. You have as well. So it's for the public to decide which of us is right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Sambou. Well, I just forgot. I mean, because we try to make this interactive. I mean, we got some guys that have been doing some commenting. Unified APRC, he said this about an hour ago. Anyway, it's a great one. And then another one, he said, well done, Lamin. And then we got Babil Mansa Jr. says, Lamin, you are wonderful. And then we got Jola Mansa Jiba said, they just want to rig the election. So yeah, And then now we got Manjanya Kowali. Manjan Yakowali, the IEC chairman once said it is in 1997 constitution that Gambians in the diaspora should vote for the former government. Does not apply it. Okay, yeah. So basically, isn't it? And actually, that is actually brings it very, very nicely to what I wanted to say anyway. Because I know Mr. Tamba mentioned the constitution, and then he said, we amend the constitution. So I'm like, which constitution do we amend? The 1997, obviously. Oh, and then I just saw today. Then I think I forwarded it to Mr. Sambou about the what do you call the AG, the Attorney General, saying that the draft constitution, which we thought is like is been chucked into the dustbin of history. Actually, it might actually get a second life, because he's thinking that they are doing some discussions among the political parties that they might bring it back. They might have to reintroduce it back into the National Assembly. So I think. So yeah, going back to what Mr. Samba was saying, it's in the Constitution. It just made me think, which one is it then? Is the draft, or are we still going back to the 1997 Constitution? Mr. Samba, we'll start with you because you've been the legal expert here. Thank you.
I think Lamin Tamba was mentioned in the 1997 Constitution, but Section 39, I think it's entrenched. So for it to be amended, it would have to go to a referendum. So I think the only quick fix for this one, I think it would have to be through the they would have to do it through the Elections Act. But yeah. I think there was a new bill that was going to the National Assembly, which was the Elections Act, I think 2020.
Yeah. Scandalous one, which they changed.
And the strange thing is, the IEC, which is why I am very suspicious, because I don't think the government, the government of the day wants the diaspora to vote, because the IEC announced in June, I believe. Flex, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was in June that the IEC announced that the Gambian in the diaspora would vote, and that was when they published the timetable, like Flex has explained earlier. But then a few weeks ago, we had that draft bill was leaked. I'm not sure whether it was a leak or whether it was intentionally published, but it was a draft. Well, it was in draft state anyway.
Yeah.
But if you look at, well, when I looked at that bill, at section 15, I believe A and D or B and D, one of the two.
Yeah.
It states very clearly there that certain categories of citizens, Gambian citizens, are disqualified from voting. And in fact, even Flex would be disqualified. So even Flex would not be able to vote if that passes. It says that it's for anybody who has a dual nationality, or if at all you are registered to vote in another country other than the Gambia, or I think there was a third one. I cannot recall the third criteria, but basically what that Election Act is trying to do, it is trying to extend the it is trying to extend the restrictions that currently exist in terms of voting rights, which I think is a problem, and which is why I am very suspicious that the government of the day may, at the 11th hour, do something which would just pretty much hamper everything that the IEC planned, and basically deny us the vote. So those of us in the diaspora, we should be prepared to go to Gambia to register and vote.
Yeah.
If at all the government stops us, we should go register and make sure we get them out.
Okay. So, Mr. Tamba, just before you come, so I think the whole topic, this whole subject matter was actually this. So, should we be jubilant or should we actually be cautious? Mr. Tamba, if you can comment, please.
Right. I think we should be very cautious, and I am leaning on the pessimistic side, I'm afraid, because I've seen the conduct of this government. And the particular section of the Constitution which says all Gambians of voting age from 18 years and over are entitled to vote is Section 39. It makes that clear. All right. But it doesn't say the government must ensure Gambians living abroad have a say in the elections. That's what it needs to say next. So we're talking about the 1997 Constitution, not the draft. So again, passing with that leaked election bill, which we saw, I think it was leaked back in August or something. And I remembered specifically allocating time to talk about the election bill. Now, not only, I think it's illegal. Most of those sections in the elections bill were illegal anyway. There's no way Parliament would have passed that bill lawfully, because the Constitution cannot say you have a right to eat with the right hand and then turn around and say, actually, if you don't have a right hand, you can't eat with the left hand. So what they're trying to do, the Constitution has given every Gambian a right to vote, whether you're dual national or not. All right. And then the elections bill wants to say you can't vote if you're a dual national. No, dual nationality is not illegal under the Gambian constitution. So they cannot give you one right in one hand and try to take it away from the other hand. You understand? So that elections bill, if it went to Parliament and Parliament voted it in the way it was, that would have been so outrageous, it was worth a riot, because you can't say to people, you have a right to life, and the next minute you go turn around and say, oh, you can kill somebody if you disagree on something. Yeah, you can't do that. So the constitution says every Gambian, and being dual national still means you're a full Gambian citizen. Some countries don't allow dual nationality. All right, I cannot understand that. So Gambian constitution can say Gambia, the state of the Gambia doesn't allow dual nationality. So if you go and get British citizenship or American citizenship, you should not participate in Gambian elections, all right, whether voting or standing as a candidate. So they can't turn around and say dual citizens cannot vote in Gambian elections. No. Now, what Pa Sambou Jr. said is true. I don't think we're going to vote in the diaspora because they haven't set up the systems for it yet. I can't see how they're going to set it, knowing fully well that this government works at a snail's pace, deliberately. All right? What we need to do, if you're on holiday in the Gambia in December or in January or February when the registration starts, go and register. Come December next year, fly back to the Gambia and go and vote. That's your best bet. All right? If you think you're going to sit here in your cozy room in somewhere in Derby or in Cardiff or Newport, and you're going to get paper ballot coming through your letterbox to register with your passport and everything and send it to Gambian embassy and get them to put a polling booth there so you can send your mail ballot. I think you are very hopeful. Normally, I'm very hopeful in life. I take risks. I think things are going to happen. Again, flex down, I'm in your camp in terms of paper ballot. I think we need to introduce it as soon as possible. But I think next year's presidential election will be a big mistake. We can do it still with next year's presidential elections, but there needs to be a memorandum from the government to state that we will have 1 or 2 or 3 Supreme Court venues, and we have enough judges from West Africa and other continents, Commonwealth countries. We need to get at least 3 Supreme Courts. The current rate at which our Supreme Court is working at, they cannot hear all the election challenges that will come next year if we do the paper ballot. The Supreme Court in the Gambia today, how long did it take them to look at Yakumba's case? Months. How long is it taking them to look at Sirifo Sonko's case? Months. How long is it going to take them to look at Yankuba Toure's case? Months. All right. So imagine we're going to vote in December, and on the 20th of January, we're supposed to inaugurate a new Gambian president or the existing one. That's a month and a half. All right, in which the Supreme Court has to sit and rifle through the papers to see who's done what, investigate on the ground, call witnesses in. So what we need to do is call back the election to November next year rather than December. Speak to Commonwealth countries and say to them, we need at least, I don't know how many judges sit in our Gambian Supreme Court. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 5. All right? I think it's 3. But I might be wrong. We need at least the High Court to be transformed into other arms of Supreme Court, because I'm sure, 100% certain, that we will have an election challenge next year if we go via the paper ballot. All right? APRC's objection to the paper ballot is not out of Gambians being primitive. What Barrow government want to do, they want to print our paper ballots overseas, a company that nobody knows. Probably a company run by Macky Sall and the French. All right? They're getting all the fish from the Gambia, all the oil from Gambia and everything, and they want to maintain Barrow. You saw what happened to Senegalese elections. The results that came out in February, the actual election results, were identical to the ones leaked in November, 3 months prior. All right? This is where APS is going against it. In the Gambia, we have printing. We even have a national printing and publication department. Why can't we just equip it further to print these things than give it to a foreign company somewhere hidden away in Belgium, maybe a subsidiary of Semlex, printing ghost ballots. My granddad, who died several years ago, will be on that ballot paper. That's where APRC came in, all right? And our election challenge in 2016 should have been heard. But next year, if we go the paper ballot, it'll save us time, it'll save us logistics, and cost-wise, it'll be more cost-effective too. We should be prepared to take risks. We can make mistakes. These mistakes can be rectified. But not only do we have to have dry runs, we also have to have the legal mechanism to be able to deal with election challenges swiftly. Because what's going to happen, we will have the Supreme Court, Sambou Jr. winning the presidential election, waiting 6 months for the Supreme Court to sit over it. During that period, Barrow could just interfere and sack some judges, all right? Put his own judges in there and they're fine in favor of him. I'm not saying that's what he wants to do, but these are the prospects we face, and they are very, very real. We've got to be afraid. We've seen what this government has been doing so far, all right? They will go to any length. A government has been there for less than 4 years, has got loads of vehicles, loads of machinery, but they can't do the most basic of things. But when they want to do something, they will do it. You saw what they did to the draft constitution. We've seen how they dealt with the Jana Commission. We've seen TRRC, which is pretty much legally, it's a waste of exercise because you cannot have conflicted people running a judicial system. It doesn't work like that against somebody they don't like. But going back to the electoral system, APS is opposed to the ballot papers being printed in France or Belgium or somewhere. We know what's going to happen. We want to oppose it. Give it to the Gambia printing publication thing, which is owned by the government. Just give them 3-4 more machines, equip them better, let them print it on the ground. If there's a mistake, they can rectify it on the ground. We know who's who. In the printing department, there's a UDP guy, there's an APRC guy, there's a DOI guy. If you want to defraud the system, they'll say, hang on, you want to defraud our presidential candidate, Flex Dan. He's APRC, no way. And UDP guy will counter it, all right? Foreign office, foreign country, who's going to oversee it? If that's a mistake, how do we rectify it? This is the problem. That's why APRC stood up. We discussed it, and I'm glad Duduja came out, our spokesman, came out and opposed it. And Duduja, too, on behalf of the APRC, opposed the ostracization of Gambians in the diaspora, stopping dual citizens from voting. We opposed it strongly, and I hope when the final draft comes out to go to Parliament, every Gambian citizen, the right you're given in the right hand is not taken away through the left hand by the IEC. They cannot do that. The Constitution is supreme. It can't give you one right, and a secondary legislation comes in and takes away that right. That can't happen. That's illegal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sambou. I think, Mr. Dan, thank you so much for your patience. I know you wanted to leave a little bit early. I'm very sorry. So if you can probably give us your closing statements, please. It's been very wonderful. It's been very productive, and it's been very insightful. I always learn a lot from Mr. Sambou, but it's nice to have you two here as well today. So there you go. I got two new fans now. So there you go. So yeah, it's all yours. The floor is yours, Mr. Taylor. Please, you can have your closing statements, and then we probably have to arrange this again because it's natural. Anytime you have this conversation, they do digress a little bit because we actually meant to concentrate on should we be jubilating or should we be concerned or should we be over optimistic or a little bit pessimistic or slightly cautious. But there you go. This is the way the apple crumbles sometimes. So, Mr. Taylor, please take away.
You're spot on there. This discussion must continue, and it continuing is actually, you may feel it's not having an impact, but it is. It inches you a little bit closer. It lets them know what your concerns are and how serious you are as diaspora about it. And I think that's also one of the challenges. Now, I agree with a lot of some of what my colleague, Mr. Tamba, has said. Certainly, I disagree with some of them. It's certainly something we should be cautious about. Optimistic. Should we be fearful? We should be careful, I would say. Not fearful. I don't believe that being fearful really helps a lot. But we must be very, very careful and cautious. It could go very wrong. These ballot papers, I fully agree with Tamba. I believe they should certainly be brought here, printed here, and done here. So that, because I am not just looking at just this election. You know, what if something happens later on, halfway, somebody is, like we need a by-election that needs to be done, for example. Like, how did the last by-elections go about? The Niamina West National Assembly member passed away. It can happen any moment to any elected official. It could even happen to the president. You know, God forbid. You know, we're not praying for that, but we as a country must be prepared. And how do we do it? I believe, like what Mr. Tamba is saying, we must have this printing equipment here. They must be printed here so that when we have problems with them, they must be addressed here. We cannot take the risk of having them in another country. It's too big a risk. We have to secure our vote. So I agree with him in that regard. I do see the IEC slightly different to him because I actually see the IEC have been very courageous in their decisions, and often when they have put a date or when they have made some things forward, I believe they have gone with it. Some of those amendments, I certainly, like Mr. Tamba, I don't agree with them. You cannot say that. It's not done. You give Gambians the right to vote, and then you say, and the Gambians have the right to dual citizenship. It's clearly there. So then what gives anybody the right to think that this person with dual has the right to dual citizen? Obviously, what's a dual citizenship when you cannot vote? What is the point? You have dual citizenship, but no, sorry, you cannot choose who is going to lead the country. You're a half citizen. So I think some of those things should really be taken out. All at the end, I just wanted to highlight these last two words. I think the National Assembly members are from various parties. I don't think that they will allow the bill to pass if it becomes an issue where the political parties are all mostly, apart from NPP or the state, are not supporting ballot. I don't think it will pass the National Assembly. And even so, if it will be passed, at least they will make sure that they make the amendments. And this is where I think you, the diaspora Gambians, should be looking at that bill, that electoral bill. Now is your chance to put something there for diaspora to vote. Now is the time to get that in that electoral bill. Let them put it there. Let them not waste time. Put it in there so that the diaspora will get the right to vote. And I would finally like to highlight to my diaspora colleagues who are thinking of ensuring that to make sure by hook or by crook they vote. Well, you cannot wait for the registration of the diaspora Gambians to fail, because by then the registration of Gambians in Gambia would have been completed. What I'm trying to tell you is that you must travel to Gambia around the next voter exercise. What I'm trying to tell you, go and look at that IEC calendar and start booking Thomas Cook or whichever is currently available, so that you can make sure that definitely if the diaspora the registration fails, that's clearly an indication it's not happening. If that registration fails in July, that's what I'm telling you guys. Be on their neck together with people like me who have already been interviewing them on these things, and certainly I'll be happy to assist. And certainly I still feel like I'm part of the diaspora to some extent. So all in all, I really think we should be cautious. There's nothing to celebrate yet. Nothing, because there's no legal change that gives you any lawful right to vote yet. So there's nothing to jubilate. There is a lot of cause to be cautious and push this the IEC to keep to their deadlines. Ask them, what are they doing? What are they doing? And finally, this dry run certainly needs to happen in one way or the other. And finally, please do invite me again. I am really when it comes to diaspora issues and diaspora vote, I am really interested, and more than anything, I am willing
Grace is the wheel. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Hope to
Thank
be
you
with
so
you
much.
soon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Taylor. I mean, obviously, and we'll definitely would like you to come back again. I think Mr. Sambou knows everybody, so I mean, we're gonna leave in his capable hands. But anyway, Mr. Sambou, please, the floor is yours, and then just closing statements, and then obviously we can go back to Mr. Tamba as well. Mr. Sambou, please.
Yes, like Flex explained, it is this conversation definitely has to carry on. I'm hoping that this one is going to be the first of many.
Yes. Because
with these things, all we have so far is just a pronouncement from the IEC. All they are saying is they just made a statement of intent, but we have nothing substantive that we can rely on to say that it is definitely going to happen. That can change at any time. And Flex did raise something that was very important, which is that the registration is starting in the Gambia. So obviously, clearly, once everybody in the Gambia has been registered to vote, I personally don't think there would be the government will have any problems whatsoever to do all it is that they can or all it is within their power to prevent the diaspora registering. Because I am of the belief that not just the Gambian government, I am of the belief that the political class in the Gambia, for some reason, they just they've given the impression that they do not really want to remove the barriers that currently exist that restricts the participation of citizens in the diaspora in the way that democracy and the governance of that country is done. Whatever the reason for that is, I do not know, but certainly that is the impression that they have given. Because if we look at it, in the days of Jammeh, these opposition parties, they came together and they formed this group that was called GOFA, which was the Gambia Opposition for Electoral Reform. But what we have to look at is, since the change happened, obviously when they won power, they were in government, and they still are in government, even though most of them would like to make us believe that, oh, no, it's no longer a coalition, it's battle. It is a coalition government. They are all in government. That's how I see all of them. The only opposition parties that we currently have is APRC and GDC. Everybody else is part and parcel of this the machinery of government, because when the Gambians voted in 2016, they voted for all of them, and not just Adama Barrow. If they decided to allow Adama Barrow to do whatever he wants, that is up to them. But as far as we are concerned, we should not look at things the way that they want us to look at them. So we have to hold them to account. So since the change has happened, clearly we have seen that every electoral reform that benefits the politicians has happened. The age limit has been removed, and the restriction that was in the constitution with regards to members of parliament losing their seats whenever they are dismissed from their parties, that has gone. And not too long ago, they've done the same thing for the local government representatives. So the politicians, they've addressed all the electoral reforms that benefits them or that is of interest to them. But the electoral reforms that are of interest to the people, they're coming up with excuses. They come up with money excuses. And like Flex pointed out, the amount of money that the Gambia diaspora contributes to the Gambian economy is over 22%. And in 2019, the figure was $318.5 million. This is the contribution of the Gambian diaspora into the Gambian economy. What the Gambian diaspora contributed over the past 4 years, 2016, 17, 18, and 19, was more than what was contributed by the tourism sector, and it was more than what was contributed to by industry. And when I say industry, I include foreign direct investment as well. So clearly, we should, what we are seeing right now, right before our eyes, is the diaspora citizens, or us in the diaspora, we are being taxed by the Gambian state, but we are not being given any representation. And clearly, our democracy is incomplete unless and until the 10% of the Gambian citizenry that lives outside the Gambia and that contributes way above every other category of citizen or every other vital sector in the Gambia. Apart from agriculture, agriculture is the only individual sector that contributes more to the economy than the Gambian diaspora. The Gambian diaspora is the second largest contributor into the Gambian budget. So they should really, the economic case for us to be involved in the decision-making process has been made out. So us in the diaspora, we should try and really not just hold our politicians to account, but we should also start looking at organizing ourselves to ensure that we apply pressure to make sure that our rights that are supposed to be guaranteed by the Gambian state are guaranteed, and that we have the franchise, not just the franchise to vote, but we should also have the right to representation, as in we should have MPs or members of parliament that are elected from among Gambians in the diaspora to go to the National Assembly to represent us. Because otherwise, how else are our problems and the challenges that we face here, like the example that Lamin Tamba has given with regards to passports. And I am sure other Gambians like myself, I have a very big problem with that $20 that they've introduced for us to be paying when we go to the Gambia. And before you leave, you have to also pay as well. We are being taxed $40 just to visit the Gambia and back. And whilst you're here, you're contributing, but the rights that you're supposed to be enjoying as a citizen, the government is not giving them to you. So clearly, we are being taken for a ride, and it's about time we apply maximum pressure and make sure that things change for the better. But hopefully, this platform will be a very useful mechanism that can assist that process.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Tamba. Just before I come to you, yes, just to buttress that point, really, this is a medium, and we definitely would like people to utilize it. We definitely like Gambians to use this. We want Gambians to own this. We cannot overemphasize this. So whatever discourse on anybody want to have over any other subject under the sky, if it's got to do the betterment of the Gambia, if it's got to do informing Gambians better, please bring it on, please. And then Mr. Tamba, obviously, I know you guys are, you guys are mini celebrities, I'm the only one who doesn't know anyone. I don't seem to know any personalities, but everybody seems to know you guys. Because I was sending somebody some messages today. I'm like, oh, I got Mr. Tamba coming. He's like, how? I said, yes, I've seen his program before. You did something about the environment in the Gambia. I was very impressed. You're talking about the levees and how they what they can do to, just to basically manage the flooding around Senegal. I was so impressed. That was the first time I came across you. I was very, very impressed. But anyway, I just thought I wanted to chip in here. I think we can organize ourselves into pressure groups, because don't quote me on this, but I think the EU is taking what's it called? How do you want to call it? They've given the Gambia, they call it democratization process, or whatever they want to call it. So I think they are willing to sponsor a whole lot of things in the Gambia. So when it even comes to these ballot box, ballot papers or whatever, I think if the Gambia can write something of makes sense, is comprehensible to them, they'll give it to them and so they'll sponsor it. All right. Well, anyway, Mr. Tamba, if you can just make your closing statements, please. And we would like to, I mean, I just touched on this briefly. We would like Gambians who are watching us, and even non-Gambians, if you would like to have any discussions, you would like to join on debates like this, because these are just discussions. We can never overemphasize this. None of us are professing to be, we know it all, or actually meant to be specialists in this. None of us are. But we just thought we come to realization for the Gambia to move forward, we need to have discussion, lots and lots of them. So that's why we're here. So if you're watching, send us messages on YouTube or the Facebook page or wherever to say, okay, this is my idea. I would like to come. We like it. It's very interactive. People like Manjang Nakowali, Mr. Koli, Mr. Mane, and with other guys we got here. Let me just give them a shout out. Mr. Jahumpa, Mr. Jiba, Jola Mansa Jiba, Babali Mansa Junior, Unified APRC. We like you too to come here. We'd like you to come and join us, please. Okay? You come and join the platform. We all got something to say. We all gonna exchange ideas just to better inform our people. Okay, Mr. Tamba, if you would like to make closing statements, please.
Okay, just to remind Gambians in the diaspora, the system is the voter registration starts actually this Monday, the 16th of November. Gambia government is supposed to gazette the new voter registration dates and requirements and every single thing that comes with it. So 16th of November, they should announce legally that the voter registration will start on the 14th of January to the 25th of February. So if you're watching this, please spread the message to everyone in the diaspora. Now, again, I would have loved our votes, diaspora registrations, those should have to have started and completed before registration in the Gambia. Because if they fail to register us here, then you can rush to the Gambia and get registered. But now that Gambia is being registered, you need to go and get your voter's card, because if you don't get it and then the diaspora vote falls through, which means it doesn't happen, then you're caught in the middle of nowhere. All right? So get your Gambian voter's card just in case. All right? So the voter registration period is 14 January to 25th February as it stands, unless IEC changes. All right. But to you, Mr. Mane, and to Sambou Jr. and to Flex Dan, glad to have you on the platform. The diaspora is not only, again, we're injecting a lot to our country to keep our economy viable. But if the figure of 130,000 Gambians in the diaspora is true, we are the biggest city too in the whole of Gambia. All right. There's no city in the Gambia that's got a population of 130,000 people. You understand? So if we're in the diaspora, not only are we injecting money into our economy and keeping the foreign exchange afloat, not only are we second to agricultural sector, we are the largest sector. So we should really be participating in Gambia's politics, because the money we're putting into the Gambia is impacting on our lives indirectly. If my family struggles today, I will not be happy here. It drains my economy. If I have a Gambia government that pays staff sufficient money, decent healthcare, decent education, I don't have to send $5,000 to get my brother's child through the CT scanner. All right, because the government looks after that. So it's not only is it affecting my brother at home, it'll affect me here, and it'll affect you, it'll affect somebody else. So in the interest of you, myself, my country, and Gambians abroad, if we have a competent government in place, it saves us all the hassle. All right? Not everyone will be in the same boat, but at least sometimes you know, okay, this president is better than our last one, so let's give him a breather. So to all of you watching, please, let's push. Gambians in the diaspora are your brothers and sisters. Let's not allow the election bill. I know what APRC MPs already think about the bill. I can tell you that, but I'll not tell you exactly what they're going to do. For every other Gambian, we are your brothers and sisters. We're not scary. Push. We pushed for you guys to have your rights on the ground. Yep. We pushed for the draft constitution not to come in because of segregation that we can foresee coming. It's for your benefit on the ground. You push for us overseas to be able to vote. It helps us both. It keeps us as family. And thank you very much. I love every Gambian. My interest is for us to have a government that's in place that looks after every Gambian, regardless of what corner. You look at what United States and Britain will do. They'll go to war to save one life.
Mhm.
We have to have that mentality in our heads.
Mhm.
Let's go to war to save one life. We look after each other. Let's fight when it's politics season. After that, let's fight for Gambia. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Sambou. Thank you so much, Mr. Tamba. Obviously, Mr. Yusef Taylor is not here anymore, and obviously, our gratitude and appreciation to the guys in the the technical guys who are making all this possible. Mr. Jamme and the two Mr. Jammes, Lamin and Ababakar. Like I just like to end on again. I think it's fair to say the unified message here today. We are all very clear on this that we can be cautiously optimistic. Okay, but let's not sit on our laurels. We have a long way to go. So let's organize ourselves. Let's organize pressure groups. I mean, the EU they've made a promise that they are gonna help the democratization process of the Gambia. Let's take them at their word. Let's not take it at what's it called? Let's make sure that they keep their word. And I think if we can do a whole lot of things here to say, okay, this is diaspora. Like you said, we are the biggest city. If it's a city, the size of the city, that would be, you could say that's half of the West Coast region, you could say. Yeah. Really. So we should be franchised. So if we can put pressure on our MPs back home, then we can also try and organize ourselves into pressure groups and also try to put pressure on the EU and other donor countries and donor agencies to make sure this reality materializes. Well, anyway, I would like to say thank you once again to everybody. And this is just the first episode, and I will definitely be glad if we can do a second episode. Mr. Sambou, obviously, if we can work on this and see who you can invite, I will work out. I mean, like I said, I'm not a mini celebrity like you guys, but I'll also see who I know here and there. So, Mr. Tamba, I'm hoping we can rely on you, okay?
Yeah, no worries.
All right, to our viewers, thank you very much. And I really cannot say I cannot go without thanking you, because within a very short period of time, you were able to organize all these people. And this is very, very healthy debate we had here. Like we said, and we keep on saying this over and over again, we are not professing to be professionals in this. We're not professing to be experts in this. We just basically saying that, and we are hoping that from this conversation that we have, like Mr. Tamba said, let Gambians be ready to go to war to save other Gambians. This is what it's all about. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
And lovely weekend to everybody and your family.
Thank you.
Thank you.